Right, let's also talk about what's going on here and in the Middle East when it relates to Gaza and Israel. It is exactly a month today since the horrific massacre by Hamas terrorists that the BBC are watching. Yes, they're called terrorists. It's really easy to say. It's really easy to say. Still not doing it. Prescribed terrorist organisation. We've got, the UN Secretary General talking about Gaza being a graveyard for children. Very emotive words. This after Hamas, who run the health ministry in Gaza. Nothing happens in Gaza without Hamas being in control of it. A terrorist organisation, run, by the way, by multimillionaires sitting in lovely Qatar, such as Qatar is lovely, in their five-star villas, having a lovely life and getting private jets. While the people suffer in Gaza as a result of their policies, they claim 10,000 people have died. They reckon 4,000 plus of those are children. Is it right for the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, to use that sort of emotive language?
I don't think it is. I think it's feeding, whether it's wittingly or unwittingly, a really unpleasant trope which is often projected onto Israel, which is the idea that any act of defending itself, even against this genocidal terrorist organisation, because of the fact that war is hell and civilians do get caught in the crossfire, even when they're not explicitly targeted, that this is just them being bloodthirsty. And actually the trope of the Jews, the Israelis, they delight in just killing babies. It's a kind of refashioned blood libel. I'm not suggesting that that's what he's doing explicitly, that he's necessarily thinking about it, but by going along with the crowd,
I don't think a lot of people who say
really
this stuff, I think this stuff is just imbued in them, and they just, who isn't horrified by children dying in any circumstance? 100%. What sort of human being are you if you're not? I absolutely worry about the children of Palestine, and the adults of Palestine who've got nothing to do with this, dying and losing their homes as a result of this. But Israel didn't start it. And I don't understand, when you ask people, what do you want Israel to do then? I spent the last couple of weeks saying to people supporting the Palestinian cause, OK, so what would be a proportionate response from Israel to the Hamas attack? Because I know what the proportionate response I would consider to be acceptable if this had happened to me and my family, and a heck of a lot of people would be dying right now.
No, completely. And also, what do they mean by proportionate response? Should they have launched their own pogrom in Gaza or something?
If they just killed 1,400 people and took them hostage, would that be OK?
It's an absolutely absurd argument. The point here is to eliminate militarily the Hamas threat. Anyone can understand why that's taking place. Of course, no one delights
at what cost, though? Because that's the thing. You're going to have to kill, realistically, if they're keeping people, civilians, they're people in hospitals, they're building their military centres underneath hospitals and those tunnels. Is it defeat Hamas at any cost?
Well, of course not. I think there's always going to be points at which, and you've already heard kind of discussions about kind of pauses, allowing aid in, trying to do this in such a way it doesn't target civilians and so on. But we also have to remember who's responsible for this conflict starting, and also who's responsible for putting Palestinians in the line of fire. It's Hamas, who are firing their rockets from civilian infrastructure, who are quite credibly accused of using hospitals, ambulances, I should say, to transport their own fighters, and using hospitals as their bases of operation. We obviously shouldn't be relaxed about the civilian death toll. It's horrible. War is hell. But we also need to be clear-eyed about who started this and who is putting Palestinians in harm's way, even as the idea of trying to clear them out.
The old line is very, very simple. If Hamas put down their arms, there will be peace. If Israel put down their arms, there will be no more Jews. It's that in the Middle East. That's the simplest thing. Coming back to the Gaza-Israel battles and what's happening here, Armistice Day march this Saturday. We've been talking about this. On TalkTV for the last week. This idea that this is the wrong day to hold this march. We've been doing it on a Saturday. It's already been intimidatory for an awful lot of people going into central London. I've certainly said to my daughter and her friends, many of whom are Jewish, you can't go into central London. It's just not safe. You can't do that. No one should ever feel that about their own city. That's wrong as it is. But this plea, this begging by the Metropolitan Police, please don't hold this march, because if we ban it, we don't want to ban it because we don't want to upset anybody. If we ban it, then people might turn up anyway. Have the police lost control of our streets?
It feels that way. Not least because one of the things that's been so horrifying about all of this is that obviously these people have a right to protest, they have a right to march, as unpleasant and as
My God, you and I have fought that right over the last few years.
You know, when a lot of people were shirking the responsibility to defend that particular freedom because they didn't like the people who are protesting. So we've got to do these protesters the same courtesy, if you like. But at the same time, what's been incredible is people firing fireworks at police, things turning violent, that not being dealt with in an effective...
A veteran poppy seller in his 70s being punched, pushed and shoved at Edinburgh Waverley Station, where there was not one of those sit-ins like there was in Liverpool Street in London. Totally unacceptable. Where are the police?
I know these are clear-cut crimes. They should be arrested for doing so. So that's not there. And also just at least that general sense that these things are basically out of control. I don't think these protests should be banned, as we've already discussed. I think it's quite clearly could easily just kind of feed their narrative that they are these kind of brave insurgents and so on. But at the same time, it is striking that even when the line of legality has been so clearly overstepped, in terms of violence, assaults, nothing's really happening, and that is quite concerning.
And even again, some of the banners, I mean, again, it's just, they're totally unacceptable in this country. You're basically supporting Hamas, shouting slogans of a terrorist organisation. And again, I think a lot of people on this marches, I think they don't actually know what they're doing. They're sick form politics. They are ill-informed. They're useful idiots. But I also think there are an awful lot of people on these marches, too many, even if they're a minority, who actually want to do a seal. Bearing in mind, it's a former, Hamas leader who's one of the people living in this country. What's he doing here is my first question, who is one of the organisers of these marches. I do just find it extraordinary. I think if these are people who live here, so most people I'm going to guess on this march that are born in this country, they're as British as I am, or people who come to live in this country. Whichever you're born here or you've come to live here, you should understand about there are times when you have rights that you choose not to exercise at that time.
Yeah.
And you choose not to exercise them because you are stepping on other people's rights at that point and other people's sensibilities. And not because I'm offended or I don't want your much, but I'm thinking it's Armistice Day. This is possibly the most sort of sacred day in our national calendar. This is, and the reason why you have those freedoms is because of the people who gave their lives. You would
also think that a protest movement that was interested in winning hearts and minds and winning people over to their perspective. But I think it shows that that's not really what this movement is about. Some of them are useful idiots, as you say. But at the same time, these are not peace marches. If they were, they'd be calling for Hamas to surrender and to give up all of the hostages.
Exactly. They'd be saying, free Palestine from Hamas.
It's become, whether some people know they're doing it, others probably don't know they're doing it. It's just become a giant kind of weekly taunt, particularly of the Jewish residents.
I think that's how a lot of the Jewish community feel it is.
And so I think that explains why they're not showing that level of restraint, because that's not really what they're out there to do, I don't think.